Hello students, today we are going to start with evidences for evolution from chapter 7. We have evidences from various sources. First is paleontological evidences. Paleontology is the study of fossils. So, what are fossils? Fossils are the remains or impressions of the past organisms present in the sedimentary rock or other medium. Means when the animals got buried during rock formation, especially the sedimentary rock formation, the layers were deposited years after years and certain organisms, plants, animals got pressed, decayed, and some impressions were left, and now they are a useful source to find evolution because they left certain impressions of the hard parts. And different aged rock sediments in earth's crust indicate the presence of fossils of different life forms which died during the sediment formation. Means we can relate the sequence by studying different aged rock segments, because the sedimentary rocks are formed layer after layer over a large period of time. This was a family tree of dinosaurs and their living modern day counterpart organisms like crocodiles and birds. We know all these type of dinosaurs have gone extinct. And here is a beautiful example of Archaeopteryx. The fossil of Archaeopteryx is very interesting and shows a link between the reptiles and birds because it shares the characters of both. It has bird-like characters also and it has reptile-like characters also. This is how the fossils are useful in tracing evolution. A variety of fossils ranging from modern day organisms to extinct organisms can be observed. So the fossil record gives us a complete range from the extinct organisms of the past to the modern day organisms. By studying different sedimentary layers, the geological time period in which the organisms existed can be predicted. We are studying different layers of the sedimentary rocks, and it is relating us to geological time period in which that existed or in which that event occurred, and it relates to the organisms of that time. So we reach to the concept of geological time period. I show you. Students, here we are showing the geological time scale. You can see 350, 300, 250, 200, 150 and such time periods written over here. Actually, we are going back from 0 to 50 million years ago, to 100 million years ago, and like this we are going back. So we are going back up to 350 million years ago. Even before that, it means the words Carboniferous, Permian, Triassic, Jurassic, Cretaceous, Tertiary, Quaternary, these are the words, these are actually the periods of the time. They belong to a certain era. And here the time is not actually equally divided. In the time scale, they are divided actually according to the events which occurred. Of course, here in a systematic manner 350, 300, like this the marking is given. But these periods belong to era. Mesozoic era, Cenozoic era, and I show you further. Observe this diagram. Paleozoic has the time period of Silurian, Devonian, Carboniferous, Permian. Like this, Mesozoic has Triassic, Jurassic, Cretaceous, and Cenozoic has Quaternary, Tertiary and followed by Quaternary. It means from zero we are moving backwards and backwards and backwards, and it is all related to million years ago information. It means in the Paleozoic era we have these periods from Permian to Silurian. Again from Mesozoic era we have this Cretaceous, Jurassic and Triassic. These are the periods and this is the era. Likewise in the Cenozoic era we have the Quaternary and Tertiary periods, and these periods relate to the evolution which occurred at that time. So based upon the event which was very prominent in that time, the name is given. For example, Jurassic is the time in which there were lots of lycopods. Also Jurassic is the time which was rich in dinosaurs. I show you. And from this, in this era, the dinosaurs were up to maximum. These have gone extinct. These are different type of dinosaurs. Here, this and this. And they became extinct by the end of Jurassic. And later on, different life forms appeared. This is the data with the animals. Similarly, this is the data with the plants. How different life forms of different plants appeared over a period of time when they had started just with algae-like ancestors. So, we were talking about the geological time scale, and this has given you some idea how different life forms appeared from very simple life forms. So we are focusing on the geological time scale and relating it with paleontology, and we connect it further. I repeat, by studying different sedimentary layers, the geological time period in which the organism existed can be predicted. Now it will be clear how they can be linked with different geological time periods. Next kind of evidences are morphological and from comparative anatomical evidences. The phylogenetic history can be revealed by comparative study of external and internal structures. Phylogenetic means evolutionary. It is a very interesting topic. How by studying the morphology we can relate it to the evolution. The organisms with same structural design and origin but different functions are called homologous organs. We know homologous organs have same origin. They have structural similarity at the level of origin, but they may perform different functions. For example, the forelimbs of some animals like whales, bats and cheetah have similar anatomical structures like humerus, radius, ulna, carpals, metacarpals and phalanges, but they perform different functions. You can see the same basic structural similarity in these animals, and they belong to the category of homologous organs. Due to different needs, some structures develop differently. This is called divergent evolution. Means their origin was same, but due to different needs, they evolved differently, and the concept of divergent evolution came. Always remember, homology connects with divergent evolution. And the second concept is analogous organs. But before I proceed to the analogous organs, here is some example from plants relating with homologous organs. Some examples include vertebrate hearts or the brains in animals. This is another example. The range of vertebrate heart, we know 2-chambered heart, 3-chambered heart and 4-chambered heart, and also the complexity of brains. They are also related with homologous organs and divergent evolution. Then we have a beautiful example from plants, thorns and tendrils of bougainvillea and cucurbita. Let's go towards the example. These are the thorns of bougainvillea and these are the tendrils of cucurbita. Both are stem origin and both give the concept of homologous organs, and this is a beautiful example of homologous organs from plants, and this is the example of homologous organs from animals. Now we proceed to the second category, analogous organs. The analogous organs, which are anatomically different but functionally similar, are called analogous organs. Means they appear similar but due to their functions, but they are anatomically different. The best example is wings of butterfly and birds. We know in birds the wings are modified forelimbs, and in butterfly or in insects they are extension of skin. They look same, they perform the function of flying, but their origin is totally different. So they belong to the category of analogous organs. And analogous organs relate to convergent evolution. Due to same function, different structures evolve similarly, and this is called convergent evolution. So analogy relates to convergent evolution. Other examples of this analogous category include eye of octopus and mammals. Another example, flippers of penguin and dolphins. These are the examples from animals relating to analogous organs and also relating to convergent evolution. Some more examples from plants, very interesting. Sweet potato is a root modification and potato is a stem modification. Both are underground structures and appear like tubers, but they belong to the category of analogous organs because their origin is different. Now, another kind of evidence we get from biochemical evidences. This is another category of evidences. Biochemical evidences means the chemical available in different organisms, maybe plant sources, maybe animal sources, and relating them to the common ancestor. The similarities in the protein and genes performing a common given function among diverse organisms gives clue to common ancestry. If we find similar kind of chemical, we can relate it to similar kind of genes and we can relate it to common ancestry. The metabolic processes in organisms are also similar with same new material and end products. It means by finding metabolic similarities, also by finding the same kind of proteins formed, means by focusing on the biochemical concept, the chemicals available or the processes going on in the organisms, or we can say the metabolic processes, we relate to these can be placed under the biochemical evidence, and they give a clue for evolution. They give a clue for things which are same and similar and the things which are different. Next kind of evidence is the biogeographical evidence. Species restricted to a region develop unique features. means there can be certain kind of isolations, and the species evolved their own due to geographical isolation or due to reproductive isolation, and a species evolves and develops unique features. Also, species present in widely separated regions show similarity of ancestry. Here is a concept of adaptive radiations. It is the evolutionary process in which different species, starting from a common point in a geographical area, radiate to other geographical areas. This will be best explained by taking the examples, and the first example is Darwin's finches. Finches are actually relating to the birds. Darwin observed many varieties of the finches in the same island. In the same island, actually it was the Galapagos Island, where he observed a range in the variety of the birds. Actually, the variety was observed in the beaks and their mode of feeding. All varieties had evolved from original seed-eating finches. The original bird was seed-eating, and later on there was a big range due to their adaptation. With alteration in the beaks, some became insectivorous and some vegetarian. So, there arose variations, like some became insectivorous and some became vegetarians, means based upon the need their beaks were different. Variety of beaks of finches that Darwin found in Galapagos Island. So this diagram gives the report about Darwin's finches, and this is an example for adaptive radiations, means from a common point how different forms arose. Another good example is of marsupials of Australia. Marsupials are pouched organisms, and how they evolved in an isolated area of Australia. Within the Australian continent, many different marsupials or pouched animals are seen. We know these have evolved from a common ancestral stock. They had a common ancestor. See the diagram. Marsupial radiations means we got tiger cat, banded anteater, marsupial rat, kangaroo. We are very much familiar with this pouched mammal. Wombat, bandicoot, koala, marsupial mole, and this glider, Tasmanian wolf. Like this, so many varieties of the marsupials evolved in Australia. And this is an example of adaptive radiations. We have covered two examples. The first was Darwin's finches under the heading adaptive radiations, and the second is marsupials of Australia. Next, we proceed to placental animals in Australia. Another interesting fact, a variety of placental mammals have evolved which appear similar to a corresponding marsupial. A very interesting phenomenon. We had a range of placental mammals, and another range we have already discussed about the marsupials, and there is a similarity between them which will be clear from the picture. When more than one adaptive radiations appear to have occurred in an isolated geographical area, and two or more groups of unrelated animals come to resemble each other for a similar mode of life or habitat, it is called convergent evolution. For example, Australian marsupials and placental mammals. This also relates to convergent evolution, and there is a parallelism between the corresponding placental mammal and marsupials. Both developed in Australia. Very interesting things to note: mole and marsupial mole. We can clearly know they are placentals and they are marsupials, means all pouched, and they are not pouched, they are called placental. Another similarity is anteater and this numbat, which is the marsupial anteater. Next is mouse and marsupial mouse. Next is lemur and spotted cuscus. Next is flying squirrel and flying phalanger. Next is bobcat and Tasmanian tiger cat. Next is wolf and Tasmanian wolf. So how interesting are these marsupials and placental animals? Developed in Australia. Convergent evolution of Australian marsupials and placental mammals, and they give a hint towards convergent evolution. The next evidence comes from biological evolution, and here we will cover the theory of Lamarck. Lamarck's theory of evolution, or called Lamarckism. According to Lamarck, evolution of life forms occurred due to use and disuse of organs. The very interesting feature or the point to remember with Lamarckism is use and disuse of organs. For example, according to Lamarck, giraffes initially did not have long necks, but to access leaves on the tall trees, they had to adapt by elongating their necks. By passing this acquired character to succeeding generations, they acquired long necks. It means, according to Lamarck, according to the need, according to the use, the character was obtained and was passed to the next generation. But let's see further how true it is. But Lamarck suggested that by using the long necks means there was a need to approach the tall trees, and the necks grew long and the character was passed to the next generation, but only according to Lamarck. This theory is no more accepted, because now it is not accepted that any character which is acquired will surely go to the next generation. Here I tell you about a very interesting experiment. Actually, it was Weizmann. He cut the tail of rats or mice for 80 generations, and he could never find tailless mice. Means, if you cut the tail and in the next generation you want to find whether the next mice is with tail or without, it was always with. And he repeated the experiment many times, and he found the character which you change during the lifetime only externally will not be passed to the next generation. So this theory is disproved, but it was suggested by Lamarck, and based upon use and disuse of the organs. Next theory is proposed by, that is the Darwinian theory of evolution, proposed by Darwin. Charles Darwin, based on his observations during a sea voyage around the world in his ship HMS Beagle, concluded the following. It was Darwin who made a sea voyage, and the name of his ship was Beagle. Now let's move towards his observations. Varying degrees of similarities can be observed between the existing life forms and those that existed millions of years ago. This is the first idea, that in the existing life forms there will be certain similarity and with those which existed millions of years ago due to gradual change. According to him, there has been gradual evolution of life forms with new forms arising at different periods of history. Means there is a very slow change going on with different time periods, and finally that change is observed. Any population has built-in variations in characteristics which adapt it better to the environment. Means a population has certain characteristics. Based upon the needs, they keep on adapting and new variations will be seen. The characteristics which enable some populations or individuals to survive better in natural conditions like climate, food, physical factors, etc., would outbreed others, and the theory of survival of the fittest. Means there are certain characters which are favorable. They are favorable in response to survival. Means because of those characters the individual can survive better. Those which survive will breed more. That is why it is written would outbreed others. So later on we will have a population of those which have adapted and they are surviving and they are breeding, and others will be gradually eliminated. Those populations which are better fit, reproductively fit in an environment, will be selected by nature and will survive more. It means those which are better fitting, those which are better fitting, those which adapt more, and they will be selected by nature because they will survive. This concept is called natural selection. So Darwin's theory is related to the feature of natural selection. Adaptability is inherited. Those features which one individual acquires due to changes in the environment, those adaptations are inherited, and fitness is the end result of the ability to adapt and get selected by nature, and finally they are selected by nature. Natural selection is based on following factual observations. These are the facts which favor the natural selection. Limited natural resources. The resources are always limited. Now, some will adapt and will be selected, others will not be. They will be eliminated. Another, stable population size except seasonal fluctuations. Another point, varying characteristics of members of a population, and most of the variations are inherited. All these observations are relating to the concept of natural selection. The two key concepts of Darwinian theory are branching descent and natural selection. So, Darwin's theory is relating towards us two factors. One is branching descent, which is related with adaptive radiations, and we have discussed the adaptive radiations just before, and another is natural selection. The examples of natural selections are, this part we have discussed, and the natural selection we are going to discuss with some more examples. Here is a case of industrial melanism. It is a very interesting example of pigmentations, changes in the pigmentation of the insects. In England, before industrialization, white-winged moths were more in number than dark-winged moths. Means it is a time before industrialization. There were lichens in the surroundings and they were matching, the white-winged moths were matching with the surroundings. But after industrialization, dark-winged moths became more in number than white-winged moths. Means after industrialization there was dark shoot all around, and then in those days dark-winged moths became more in number than the white-winged moths. See the change in the percentage of the white progeny and the dark progeny. This is because during industrialization, the tree barks covered by white lichens became dark due to the deposition of the dust and coal particles. And see how the black moths were more adapting in these surroundings and white moths were more adapting in the pre-industrialization time. As a result, white-winged moths could be easily picked up by the predators from the dark background, and dark-winged moths survived because later on it is the time of after industrialization when white-winged moths were noticeable and the black were matching with the surroundings. Those which were noticeable, they were picked up by their predators. Means there was a risk to their life. The white-winged were subjected to risk and the dark were surviving and reproducing more and more. This is also relating to natural selection. How a population of white with few members of the dark-winged moths later on became a population of the dark-winged moths with very few white or almost negligible population of the white-winged moths. Another example is chemical resistance. Excessive use of herbicides and pesticides has resulted in the evolution of resistant varieties of the microbes in much lesser time scale. Normally we say that evolution is a very gradual process. But see the role of chemicals in creating resistance. When we apply pesticides and herbicides, what happens? Many microbes, bacteria become resistant to their effect. You may keep on adding and they have changed to their resistant forms. And this change has occurred in a short time span. This is another kind of evolution. As a result, pathogenic bacteria are appearing in very short period. If we want to kill them, we apply these chemicals, but they have developed it to their resistant forms and they keep on existing. Then, next theory is mutation theory of evolution. This is another theory and which tells about some sharp changes. This was put forth by Hugo de Verres based on his work on evening primrose. He worked on the plant evening primrose and what he found regarding evolution. According to him, evolution is caused by sudden large differences in the population. He is focusing our attention towards sudden change, not a gradual change. These mutations or the Hugo de Verres theory is focusing our attention towards sudden large change, sudden difference, and we call it mutation and not the minor variation as per Darwin. Darwin was focusing our attention towards gradual changes over a long period of time span. But here is a case of a sharp change, or we can say it is sudden change. He believed that mutations caused speciation and called it saltation or single step large mutation. Sometimes we get a question, what is saltation? Saltation means a single step large mutation. Means in one generation only you will find a sharp change. So the word speciation is also written over here. Speciation means formation of new species. New species means it was showing such morphological changes that we can declare it a new species. Means such fast changes are there. Mutations are random and directionless in contrast to small directional variations as per Darwin. Now regarding mutations, they are random, they are very sudden, they are directionless in contrast to gradual changes, directional changes as proposed by Darwin. Thank you.